I'm Alfredo Mycue, and I'm the Director of Business Transformation for Texas Workforce Commission. I'm also a retired colonel from the Army. I've had an opportunity to work in the State Department, had an opportunity to run a business in Austin, Texas, and I've worked in several agencies there now. And one of the challenges that I've seen is the difficulty that government has in tying the value that they produce with the cost or the energy that you all as taxpayers pay for us to be able to produce that value within society. And when I was in business, I got to know P&L pretty well, right? I got to know the bottom line. I knew when I was able to make payroll and when I wasn't able to make payroll and the challenges therein. And that was a great forcing function for me. And then when I returned to government, in state government this time, I realized that was absent. And so when I got exposed to a lot of the concepts of theory of constraint, one of the things that I seized upon is this ratio between quality throughput and operational expenses and how that can be utilized and operationalized in government. And I'm starting to see more and more potential, and I'm getting more and more excited about it because my managers now, I've been in the job nearly 4 years, and they've got 4 years of data. They've got 4 years of analysis. They're making decisions based upon this ratio. They don't just look at budgets at the end of the cycle or in the beginning of the cycle. They look at their budget every month, and they take all of what they do, and they divide it by everything that it costs for them to run their office for that month. Let me share this with you. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to sit back and imagine for a moment. See if I can go backwards. There it is. So imagine that government could track improvements graphically and track them simultaneously. That we could look at our quality and our speed, look at our productivity, and then also include our costs within that dynamic. Imagine that every team could achieve more with less effort and be able to brag about it. Okay? Imagine every manager knowing how much it costs to produce their government service or goods. Okay? Now, I started to work under a mandate, right? And he says, this is my boss, Larry Temple, we're entrusted by the taxpayers to use our tax money efficiently and effective. We need to look at new ways, not just the way we've always done it. We need to be innovative. We need to eliminate waste, increase our responsiveness, and reduce our costs. But the bottom line is, I believe, that it's the right thing to do for the taxpayers, to do the most good with the money that we have been given. These are a few of our tenets that were part of our cultural transformation at TWC. You can see that the one I'm talking about, the quality throughput over operational expenses, is there, and it's actually part of our dashboard for our managers to be able to keep track of. So there's a certain stability in the reporting mechanism that they have. Now, these are the aha moments of what I call this journey that I've made, okay? And so the aha moments are what has helped me move into this direction of what I believe is a revolution or a potential revolution in the way that we run government. And it's going to be very different in years to come once this begins to take hold. Baha, you can see your name up there, right? And you and Kevin Fox introduced this to me and said, well, we need a common and effective way to measure improvement. And you'll see in a moment, we'll take a look at that cloud, right? And then my second aha moment was when Kristen Cox and Rick Little helped me understand that we need to track this by percent change, not just by the individual cost that each organization is paying for whatever they produce. And we measure everything. We measure applications that are improved, permits, investigations, solid families restored to stability. within their area. You name an output of government and that a government employee would be proud of doing, and we're measuring it and figuring out its cost, and figuring out its quality, and figuring out its productivity. Okay. Then the next aha moment, and we're going to talk about these. You're looking at the agenda for my presentation. Is the area under this trend line is the improvement. It's also how, and we've been able to turn it into money. I'll show that to you. It's also how much money we've saved from our baseline productivity. Okay. The next one is gross savings, reinvested savings, and net savings, and how we figured that out to be able to show the legislature in Texas the money. The legislature in Texas really, really wants to know where the Texas tax dollar is spent and with what efficacy. And number 5 here is the conceptual FTEs as a gained capacity. And everybody get their thinking cap on, and maybe your calculator's close to you, because we're going to go through that. And as you can already probably tell, we'll be a little interactive here, okay? So we're going to have a little fun. But I'm going to convince you of what a conceptual FTE is and what that means in the organization. And finally, a triple check for true ROI in government, because if you just tell somebody that you save money, they don't believe it. If they see the results, they're like, okay, well, you had that capacity in the first place, right? And so there's a triple check to make sure that what we say to the legislature in terms of achievements and improvements really is the truth. Okay, so the first thing is, the first aha moment is we need a system-level measurement. And you might recognize this slide, Baha, and where we talked about operating expenses, inputs, investment, throughputs, and Kevin talked about this as well. But the problem is in business is that often it's manifest, it's inherent, it's understood, the quality, dynamic, and throughput, because if you produce something and your customer won't buy it, then there's a quality issue. Does that make sense to everyone? But when you produce something like your driver's license in your pocket and all the effort that it came to being able to do that was government effort, how do we know if that's quality? How do we know if the experience is quality? How do we know that who chose to get one, who got one, and who didn't get one, based upon the fact that he or she may have been 97 years old and maybe didn't see too well, right? And you're dodging her on the highway next week. And so often it's a more difficult dynamic. It's not inherent in there, and so we need to look at our quality independent. And indeed, if you look at the state, city, and federal sources, they'll all have a dynamic in quality when they give you money to operate, to achieve a government service, right? They'll give you their definition of quality. Okay? So here's the cloud. And if anybody's ever been in government and everybody's been measured, you'll recognize this immediately, right? If anybody's ever suffered under the unjust yoke of measurement, you'll recognize this immediately, right? So we all want to have a more efficient and a more effective government. But as Baha told me, right, we need to know if we're improving, if our effectiveness and efficiency is improving. If we make a change and it's actually improving in the right direction, how do we know that? We've got to be able to measure that. We've got to be able to understand what our efforts are producing. But at the same time, we need to focus on our mission. We need to focus on the tasks at hand. And when we do that, we don't need a lot of irksome, weighty measures dragging us down. So there's an assumption, once we start to measure and once we start to embrace a methodology like TOC, and we talk about productivity, we talk about measure, we throw up things like throughput and costs and OE, that it's going to bear down and become a drag on the organization. It's going to interfere with our noble mission in government. Okay? So those are the assumptions that lead to it. But I want you to look at this. So in one case, we have a robust measuring system, and the other one says, don't measure me, right? Don't burden me with that. Let me do my job. And in fact, the quality of my job will be apparent. But imagine perhaps a measurement like QT over OE, which can be rather easily gathered, that the manager themselves decides their quality level. They pull that in, and they're able to measure 3 things at the same time, and indeed satisfy a lot of federal and state measurement requirements within that, right? So they're not shattered with a bunch of things on their dashboard, but their QT over OE talks to a lot of those aspects, like general efficiency, general effectiveness, quality level, right? And you've pulled it all into one area, and now you're able to reflect that. And that actually is the injection, one of the primary injections that we've utilized to this cloud. But the cloud lives, and there's thunder in it because there is resistance. There is resistance to being measured. There's resistance, and in government we equate measurement with over-management, right? So just kind of a review. I took this from Kristen Cox's slide a couple years ago when she discussed the topic in this forum. You can see, from TOCICO 2014 up there in the right-hand corner. But she describes, and it's there for you, quality, throughput, the operating expenses, and the overall efficiency of the system. Okay, I said to put your thinking cap on. And what I'll do is I'll generally go around the room. So I'll start with my first question with you, if you don't mind. This is okay, it's just a game. Doesn't really matter. All right, and everybody's can be plenty engaged. Okay, so you're making cakes. So this is to make it real for you, right? So this example makes QT over OE real for everyone. Regardless, so it looks like an equation, but what does it really mean? So this is what it does for you. Are you ready, Ian? You ready for this? Okay. So you're making cakes for your church's bake sale. You make 10 cakes. It costs a total of $42.78 to produce all 10 cakes. Okay? There's 3 nice cakes, 3 turnip ugly cakes, right? And you only take 7 of them to church, right? Because you don't want the other ladies to see. Okay? And then let's just say also who would buy them anyhow, right? So you give them to your kids. All right, and the throughput is I'm sorry, I messed up. What's the throughput? So throughput is whatever good or produce you have. And in this case, quality is not manifest in it. So it's whatever you made in the first place before you applied the quality dynamic. What's your guess? So it's the throughput would be all of them, right? Because that's the initial creation that you had as you created all 10 cakes, right? Because in government, we don't apply the quality dynamic within the throughput, right? We tend to find out that we didn't create quality when people complain, okay? So the next one here, what would we say is the quality of this operation? What do you say, sir? So the 7 is quality. So, or in this case, if you made it into a percentage, 7%, right? 7 out of 10. Okay. There's your quality. Okay. And the OE, pretty obvious. What do you say, ma'am? What would you say? That's the operational expenses for this enterprise here. We're not going to bill them for our own time because, after all, it's the church, right? So $42.78. Everybody with me? Okay. And there's the OE for it. Now, we represent it as a fraction. The reason that we do it is several-fold. It's very interesting. And it's entirely psychological. It's got nothing to do with TOC or it's got anything to do with reflecting the trying to manipulate the way that it's seen. The reason that we reflect that is because when you put the actual cost up there, the legislature focuses on the cost. And they're like, why does it cost $3,500 to do an investigation? That's absurd, right? And they focus. But when you focus on the actual decimal and you reflect it as percent change, then they focus on the improvement, whether you're improving or not. The other thing is if you put the actual cost per item, so the cost per investigation or the cost per child in childcare, if you do that, then you can, if you reflect it, you lose the dynamic of quality. If you don't separate quality in government, then you lose the dynamic of quality and it gets easily forgotten. So that's another reason, is because this number is very sensitive to quality. Okay? So then if you take the inverse, you can see that it costs you $6.11 per cake, but that's adjusted for quality. Okay? So that's adjusted for quality, cost per unit. All right? Everybody still with me? Okay. So if you do something good like lower your costs, what's going to happen to your QT over OE? It's going to go up. If you do something good like your quality goes up, even if everything else remains the same, what's going to happen to your QT over OE? It's going to go up. If your bake more cakes, going up, QT over OE. And if these are mixed, you'll still know the bottom line. So even if you add OE, right? If you add people to your staff and your QT over OE goes up, then you know that was a good decision. You know that was a good decision, right? You can sometimes also do it if you decide, let's say that Jeanette is leaving the organization and you say, I'm pretty stable. I believe I can handle the demands that are on the organization, and I'm going to choose to do something else with that salary. If your QT over OE goes up, you know you made the right decision. And if it causes multitasking and your QT over OE goes down and your productivity goes down, you know that you better hire somebody for that position. And managers can start to use that. Okay, so everyone got the base version, okay? All right? And this is how we reflect it in percent change. So you've got time in the quarters going through. You've got some ups and downs that goes through there. After you do a change, then you'll go through some changes, vicissitudes, up and down, initial excitement, and then my goodness, we're going to have to really implement this, and you'll go up and down. So we go by the trend line, and then we report percent change, and that's aha number 2. Okay. And that's when we realized, my CFO and I were spending time with Rick Little, who you may have met yesterday, and he was stressing the importance of reflecting a percent change as opposed to focusing on a little tiny number. Okay, this one was a very successful initial program. Baja was deeply involved with it, as well as Kevin Fox. You can see that we had 16 to 19 FTE reduction by choice of the manager, not by choice of management. So she recognized and chose to not fill positions. Nobody was laid off within that period of time. That happened through natural attrition, which in my organization is about 12%. So it offers an opportunity for these sort of things. Successful in many ways, and one was the reduction in time from 194 days to what it is right now, which is about 40 days. But I want you to see something here. So we dropped the price from $3.47 to $1.51. Okay, and this is her QT over OE percent change. Do you all see that? So my third aha, right, was that this area right here above the baseline is my ROI, is my improvement, is a visual representation of that, right? So the managers initially had resistance, like, why should I track this? And now they all collectively realize, because my good work is visual here, I can see it. In fact, if you talk to my managers, they can show you where sequestration occurred, and we had backlog, and that caused a negative cycle, where we caused multitasking, et cetera, dissatisfied customers, et cetera. They can show you when their bill should have passed and when it didn't pass, and the delay that caused. They can show you when they made a bad mistake, and they can show you how they corrected for it. So here you can see just quickly this amount of tax credits, which was $300,000, cost $1 million to produce in 2011 before we knew Baja Inozu's name. And then after we knew him and Kevin Fox's name, that was reduced. You can see here the love of your labor, the fruits of your labor, Baja, 2015 here, it cost less than half. You see? And we chose to take a bit of that, and we chose to reinvest it and answer more needs in the business community, which left us savings, which left us a ROI after we took out what we mailed to you in the check in the mail there, right? After we took that out. All right? And that gave us 182% ROI. All right? So you can start to see some of the benefits of having this calculation and understand it for your organizations. By the way, not everybody goes up, 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 right? There's changes, and that's the reason we use the trend line. And if things go down, sometimes things are beyond the manager's capability, and sometimes the constraint needs to be elevated. So here you can see this is the sort of, Andrew, this is kind of the meat here for so you can get a feel for in the organization the implementation of this. Okay, so here you've got an office here, and what they're tracking is they're tracking case intake. Okay, so the very first step, case intake. Which in an earlier presentation we saw was a significant portion of where the challenges and problems were in a process. And then here, a different QT over OE. This is cases closed. This is by the investigators. But you can see that this manager chose this one to represent the office. You see that? So, and then here, there's another one that provides technical assistance here, right? And this manager chose that represented the organization. It doesn't have to be that way. What Kristen Cox does and urges, and we are working with it in Texas at her urging, is to what she calls normalize that. And in normalizing, what you do is you would say something like, it took me twice the amount of effort to close a case. This is what my baseline is, so all of these I'm going to multiply times 2, and that's going to be my adjusted, normalized throughput. Okay, make sense to everybody? Okay, so there's different ways to do that. Here's the really cool thing, right? Because a lot of managers will look at this and they'll say, Alfredo, I have so many different types of throughput, right? Which one am I going to choose? Why am I going to marginalize somebody on my staff that may be working on the editorials in order so that I can reflect case closure? But here's what I say. These are all hard decisions when you choose throughput, right? The very fact that you're tracking QT over OE, the very fact that you understand the dynamic between quality and throughput and costs, and you're reflecting it, tells leadership, tells the public, tells the political leadership that all of this good math, that this good deliberate, that the mechanisms and the gears of government are running well. And similar decisions are made over here in this office. You can see here we've chosen, in this case, to go ahead and normalize between the two. Does that make sense to you all? Can you see that? Can you see that happening within your organization? Do you see how each office takes whatever is their primary value that they're providing society, and then they start to measure it? Not only productivity, but their quality level and their costs that they have to do it. Now, these are all costs. So they may do more than case closure in this office, but that's all the costs. The assumption is the other activities are within that OE that we have there. Okay, so there's the money's got nowhere to hide. It even includes like the costs that we distribute across everyone based upon square footage, etc. Okay, so all right, I need your thinking hat on again. Where am I at here? Ian, I'm with you now. You're going to get the next question, okay? But don't worry, it's not hard, okay? So there's a team of 4 people, 4 of the producers, okay? Probably under some supervisor. But they're 4. They do 100, whatever, determinations, right? Payments, whatever they do. But they do 100 for each person. And they're a team of 4 people. And every week, one person does 100 of these determinations, right? To eligibility determinations to determine whether somebody should be part of a program or not. Whatever, fill in the blank, okay? So there's 4 people doing 100 per week. At the end of the week, How many should be done? Ah, outstanding. Okay? Baja was there. Novasis was there. They worked with the team. They rolled up their sleeves. They were with there. There were stickies on the wall, right? There were conflict clouds that were broken. There was injections made, and they were successful, right? And so now each one of those individuals does 125 per person per week. How many does the team of 4 now do every week? How many? Quick with the math, Baja. So they were doing 100 per. Shout it out. 500. Does everybody see that? Right? 500, right? But how many people? But wait, Dave, how many people? Still 4. Do you see how the improvement created based on the old system, the old baseline measurement system that we had? It created a conceptual full-time employee. And guess what? That full-time employee is awesome. Comes in every day on time, no bitter complaints, never a grievance. I've never seen one make a grievance, right? And is dedicated, always hits their numbers, right? Just the model employee, that conceptual FTE. And the question is, can we count it? And I say yes. Because how else will the legislature understand that, right? How else will they understand the value that has been created? Right? Because one of the challenges, and John Angus talked about it, is it gets evaporated too quickly, and people just assume you've always worked that way, right? And what show me the improvement this year, buddy, right? So this is a way to show and reflect it, even if there's not necessarily an actual bottom line number, right? Because managers, when you give them more capacity in government, they're generally distressed. Remember the rule that Kristen Cox said in her keynote, right? There will always be more demand than there are resources to accomplish the good work of government. Always. And so there's always going to be a list where we're going to fund this and we're not going to fund that. And so what we've got to have is we've got to have a way to reflect that improvement that makes sense, okay? Even if the manager chose to put it into quality, or put it into timeliness, or to put it into customer satisfaction. Whatever she chose to do, or he chose to do, you may not see it in the bottom line like you did in my other one. And by the way, Baja, that wasn't the first year. They called me into the legislature to ask me how much money we saved. And I was like, oh, right? Because, and I really didn't have any money at that time. But now we do, and we can reflect it. Thank you. Okay? So that's the story of the conceptual FTE. Now, okay, so really put your hat on. Oh, John, we're up to you. But you're a bright guy, so this should be no problem for you. Okay? So here, you see here, this is what a manager would see if they were tracking QT over OE and they had this situation. Do you see that? So this is what they would have, is they would say their quality remains constant. Their T is 400 a week, just like we talked about, with the amazing math between Dave and Baja. All right, and then we had the results there of QT over OE is 0.06129. All right, does that make any sense to you, John, that number? Maybe a little bit, right? But if you invert it, you can see that it's 16.36. And what you get is the actual percentage. What that means is it's the percentage. For every dollar that you spend, you're getting 6% of a determination. So you can make it meaningful by inverting it. You can make it meaningful by talking about what $1 of taxpayer will actually purchase. Okay? So and then after an RPI, you see the improvement that we did, that Baja helped us get, and it turned into 0.07. So that's almost 2% improvement in terms of what $1 will buy. Does that make sense, Baja? Okay? And then you have a lower cost of $13.05. So you've reduced that by $3.31. Pretty cool. Okay? So results, your RPI or your TOC application gives you some results, which is additional capacity. That may be a conceptual FTE, That's my conceptual FTE. He's awesome. And reinvest, or you have your net money, okay? And again, a lot of managers choose to reinvest. And that's what this is. So this is all of the improvements based upon throughput operating strategies, okay, and other continuous improvement efforts. We send it through the eye of the needle, where we convert that capacity into conceptual FTEs or dollars, okay? And then we actually spend it. And I make the managers start thinking about what they're spending it before they even start the improvement project. Because, Baja, if you don't, and this is something I learned that you didn't teach me, it'll evaporate. Parkinson's law is real, and it will eat your lunch. And they'll create the capacity, and a team of 4, I've discovered that a team of 4 is happy to do the work of team of 3. I know that sounds bad, but unless you somehow show them and it's represented to them, then they will do the work of 5 or 6 or 7 and impress you with their quality improvements as well, right? So Parkinson's law is a real phenomenon. Okay, but wait, number 6, right? We have a triple check because people don't believe me. That's okay. Well, I want you to believe me, okay? And this is the way we check all our math, basically. Like, this is the way, you know how when you do a working equation one way, you work it backwards to figure it out? Same kind of thing here. And so the way that this works is when we get an actual finance improvement here in the area under the curve, that gives us an actual rendering, right? And then we do the analysis and we say, okay, so based upon the analysis, what actual gains what we're doing? In other words, we can convert the speed of the process into more people. Like if it took us 60 days to do it and we drop it down to 30 days, how many people based on the old system would it have taken to do that? Does that make sense? Same way we said, now we're doing the work of 500, so it would have taken us 1 other person. Same thing's true in quality. If I wanted to have that dynamic of quality, or I wanted to have somebody answering the phone and handling customer satisfaction issues, right? It would have taken that effort, and that's the second calculation here that's based on analysis. And finally, what did we do with it? Did we lose it to Parkinson's law? Because Baja didn't tell me to caution the managers that it was going to happen? No, we don't. We count it and we covet it. And that's part of our ROI. That's part of what we have, and that's part of what the managers brag about, is that reinvestment. Sometimes I'll call it second-order results, right? Second-order capacity that we have as well. And then finally, implications for the future. We're going to use it to recognize excellence, QT over OE, improve to stakeholders. I think it's intuitive. I don't know, you can tell me if it is or not. If it's intuitive, for stakeholders to see improvement. I say here Adam Smith would be proud because we now have P&L, a wise and powerful, invisible hand in government. Managers can see and take pride in their decisions, which is really cool to watch them. And before they looked at QT over OE with abject horror, right? And now they're proud to take out that graph and show whoever cares to look at it. And this is an important implication for countries that wrestle with corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse, is that those things have nowhere to hide, right? So if an enterprise suffers from that, or a country suffers from that, this is a great technique to utilize throughout your government structure, because every dollar is accounted for. It's so transparent. And all you need to do is ask for the dashboard, and it's there. And we know how much money we got, and they know how much work they did, and we know how that compares to last year, okay? People are confident, and hopefully we can win the public trust. So I wanted to close with we started with a Gallup poll in about 1963. The Gallup poll started to measure what they call confidence in the U.S. government, okay? And what we discovered is that every year since then, it's gone down till now, right? So that's my target. That's my long-reach goal right there, is how can we restore confidence of the American people or other people within their governments, in their government and in their productivity, their efficiency, and their effectiveness. And that's what's possible. It's possible to achieve more with less effort, and it's possible to count that and get a hold of that in real terms, real dollar terms, conceptual FTEs, reflection, and how you reinvested that money in your government. So I don't know where I'm at. Am I about right? A couple minutes. Can I take a question or two? Go ahead, sir.
So one of the things that I've been hearing that everyone's been struggling with this year is durability, and the governor gets replaced, and all of this that you've been doing goes out the window because you guys want a different staircase. First of all, you created this visibility, so it's not going to be so easy to go away.
Mm-hmm.
If the new person in charge doesn't like it and wants to get rid of it, can the public generate those numbers anyway, so that they're held accountable even if they try to hide it?
I think that's brilliant to be able to do. And everything in Texas, well, I think all over, we have Open Records Act, right? It's national, is available. And people can look at that.
Do something like that, this can't become obsolete.
That's my hope. Regardless of leadership changes. And also what I've noticed about this is it becomes cultural. There's collective pride in this. The team, now you can see the touchdowns. You know that you're improving. And when there's major changes made, like reorganizational changes, we can see it dip. And we can see it start to recover and start to move back again. And there's also financial stewardship, is what I would call it, that is manifest. And I believe it's deep enough, way deep in the organization, like when I was showing Andrew that slide, that they'll continue to do it, long after I and my boss are gone. Robert? Why not know how much it costs to do per mile? Why not know how much it costs to do? Why obscure that in a bunch of contracts, right? Why not make it apparent to the folks what the level of efficiency and effectiveness that agency has negotiated with the people that it contracted? I live where it took a very long time to finish the freeway to be able to do that. And I didn't know, and none of my neighbors knew how to measure, was that good or bad? Was there accountable? Was the cost fair? But now you can look at it and see and understand the expenditures of government as they relate to what government produces. So I think absolutely. So currently, really only one so far. But we have put together a state agency coordinating council on government quality, improvement, and innovation. And that's an area where I hope to introduce this and pass it on to other agencies. It takes leadership. It takes folks like you. But what we've discovered is that folks like you with the interest, the intellect, the energy, and the dedication exist in every organization, right? These are dedicated folks of service that work in the state government in Texas, and not all of them are paid up to what their potential is, and a lot of folks will grab onto this and use it. And currently, the Inspector General of Health and Human Services has grabbed onto this concept and is running with it. But there's a lot of room for adoption. And again, it's still new, and really these aha moments only came to me in the last few years. The first couple were Baja 3.5 years ago, and then the rest of them have been coming at time. And a lot of it's because we've amassed data, and now we understand this phenomena and the success that it could have. I thought it was a fancy way to sort of measure improvement, but it's so much more than that. Ian. Right. Right.
So, although you pay 10% improvement every year,
right.
It's actually not an improvement, it's just
That's a great question. I not only don't look back, I ask my managers not to look back. And I tell them that these tools, because this was gained out of applying TOC, right? Out of identifying the constraint, applying the 5 focusing steps, resolving conflicts, exposing assumptions, all of those things. This is how that was done. They didn't have those tools in the past. So I try not to judge it in the past. But I tell you, my boss is an amazingly patient man. But, and if you are working on something, he's happy to wait and see how it turns out. But show intransigence and show regression, and you'll rapidly get his attention. And I think that's the right solution. You can't judge an organization by what they didn't have at the time. But now we can. And now, if that happens again, we can look at it. And there's lots of ways to parse this data to be able to measure the contributions that result in the team effort. But we try to do that in a measured, even way that doesn't have nobody suffers from pillory for that kind of scrutiny. But now government is held accountable in a way never before. And let's not all do it in 1 week, because it's a lot for us to digest from going to totally unmeasured to this kind of resolution. All right, so thank you all very much. Thanks for your attention today and wrestling with these concepts with me. If you have any advice or perspectives or whatever, please share with them. I think my name and email is on there, and so you're welcome to share it. I'm also happy to share this with you, so that you can use intellectual properties Texas, and they want to give it to you. All right, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.